Hours before a massive tariff deadline, President Trump took to Truth Social to declare, quote, "Wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada." Now, many people are decrying the notion that a millennia-long Mideast conflict halfway around the world should in any way affect the U.S.'s relationship with one of our closest trading partners. They have accused Trump even of kowtowing to the state of Israel, which in turn they accuse of controlling U.S. policy. So, has Israel really killed our trade deal with America's evil top hat? I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. The most likely next mayor of New York is being asked in the wake of that terrible mass shooting in New York, during which an NYPD officer was killed trying to protect people. He was asked if he regrets his many calls to defund the police. His answer is horrifying. We'll get to that momentarily. First, I want to tell you about Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Knowles. We should all be eating more fruits and veggies. I want you to be honest with me. You're probably not getting nearly enough variety. That is where Balance of Nature comes in, because what you put in your body matters. Their whole health system gives you 47 different whole food ingredients. That is 16 fruits, 15 vegetables, plus 12 aromatic spices and 4 fibers. Now, I had some raspberries this morning. That means I'm still down, many. I'm still down many, okay? We're talking, in Balance of Nature, we're talking real ingredients like wild blueberries, kale, turmeric, and psyllium husk. When was the last time you had psyllium husk? Probably not recently. No artificial additives, no sugar added, just nature doing its job. One thing I love about Balance of Nature is the convenience. You take the fruits and veggies capsules with water, chew them, or open them up, mix the powder into smoothies, yogurt, or even sprinkle it on your oatmeal. The fiber and spice blend mixes great into the drinks too. It's great. It's fabulous. I love it. Mr. Davies loves it. A lot of people around DW love it. So if you want to be a Giga Chad like us, go get Balance of Nature. The supplements are vegan, kosher certified, gluten-free. Any dietary issue you have, you're probably going to be fine here. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Knowles, Knowles, 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. Balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. Trump says that Canada's decision to recognize the state of Palestine is going to make it very hard for us in America, halfway across the world, to do a trade deal with them, the country right to our north. Does this mean that this Mideast conflict that most of us don't even want to be involved in, that's screwing up all of America's even trade policy? Does that mean that the state of Israel is dictating U.S. policy on every front? No, it doesn't. Here's why. What happened? Trump had this massive tariff deadline. He had blanket tariffs of 10% on the entire world, but then he's cut certain deals in recent weeks. So on the EU, he was threatening 30% tariffs. He brought that down to 15%. He also insisted on massive European investment in the United States. In return, Europe gets basically nothing. He's got a trade deal with the UK. He had tariffs on Canada already, 25%. He announced last minute he's going to increase them to 35%. What does the White House say in response to Canada's continued inaction and retaliation? President Trump has found it necessary to increase the tariff on Canada from 25 to 35% to effectively address the existing emergency. Okay, so hold on, wait. I thought the reason that we can't have a trade deal is because of Palestine. Here, the White House is saying, well, no, it's because they're not doing what Trump has asked them to do now for 6 months. What is this really about? Because you have Trump's critics on the left who are all pro-Palestine, where the keffiyeh go out, from the river to the sea, protest at Columbia University, blue hair, queers for Palestine, whatever. You got those guys on the left. You have some people on the right who are attacking Trump for this issue. Some people on the right who hate the state of Israel, who say Trump is being led around by Netanyahu and see this is even screwing up our trading relationship with the country to the north. It's all about Israel. And I just think The people for whom that is the most compelling analysis, they're not going to make it. They're not paying attention. I think they have IDS. I think they have Israel derangement syndrome. I have been fairly critical of Israel, especially in recent weeks, because of the attack on the church that killed 3 Christians and injured 10 people, including the priest, the only Catholic church in Gaza, because of reports of persecution of Christians in the West Bank, because of all sorts of things. Because the war has gone on too long, because of famine in Gaza, because I think there's a strong argument that the conduct of the war at this point is no longer justified. Even if going to war was justified and the early conduct of the war was justified, this is not. I've been, in recent weeks, fairly critical of Israel. This criticism is ridiculous. And if you're making this argument that Trump is just being dog-walked by Israel or something, you have IDS. You have Israel derangement syndrome. Because the only evidence you need to prove that your analysis is incorrect is to look at the UK and France, 2 countries that have done the exact same thing that Canada is doing. 2 countries, the UK on its own and France through the European Union, with which President Trump just got trade deals. Trump was asked on Air Force One just recently his opinion of Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the UK, his reaction to Keir Starmer's recognizing a Palestinian state.
Starmer has just announced the UK will recognise Palestinian sovereignty in September if Israel does not commit to a ceasefire, ease the suffering in Gaza, and commit to a long-term solution that would deliver the 2-state solution in the Middle East. Did you know that was coming?
No, we never discussed it, surprisingly. It was never really discussed. Maybe a little bit at the news conference, but he was sort of discussing it with you. We never did discuss it, and we have no view on that.
We have no view on that. So the UK says we will recognize a Palestinian state if Israel doesn't stop the war. Trump says we have no view on that. We've got a great trade deal. It's great. It's wonderful. We have no view on that. Macron, the president of France, says that he will recognize a Palestinian state. What's Trump's reaction?
Counterproductive to France, for France to say that they would recognize the Palestinian state. Macron said that yesterday.
Look, he's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter. You know, it's not going to change it. Well, he made a statement, France, Macron. His statement doesn't carry any weight. He's a very good guy. I like him, but that statement doesn't carry weight.
France says we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Doesn't care anyway. Don't worry about it. Macron's a good guy. We're going to have a nice big trade deal with EU that was announced in recent days. So what's the difference here? What's going on? The UK, France, and Canada all announce the exact same thing, the exact same threat to recognize a Palestinian state because of Israel's continued conduct in the war. Why does Trump react one way to 2 of them and a completely different way to the other one? Because I think the inescapable conclusion is this has nothing to do with Israel-Palestine. This has everything to do with trade. Trump is trying to get leverage to get a better trade deal with Canada, as he's been trying to do for 6 months. I'm not saying that nothing in U.S. policy has to do with the Israel-Palestine conflict. There are plenty of things do. But if you are looking at this news and you're just taking it at face value and you're like, see, this is evidence that Israel is controlling all of American policy and Trump works for Netanyahu, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. You have allowed your mind to be melted, to be turned to pea soup by your fanatical and pathological hatred of this one Middle Eastern country. Okay, plenty of reasons to criticize that country, plenty of policies that one could advocate for, but that's just obviously not what's going on here. If that were the case, there would be no way to explain Trump's reaction to the UK and France. It's about trade, guys. Not every single thing on earth relates to the state of Israel. When you stub your toe in the morning, believe it or not, that that does not relate to the state of Israel. There are, focus on the legitimate criticisms. Don't focus on the stupid criticisms. Okay, turning to murkier topics. CBS News has a report out on the ongoing, never seems to go away Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Just to catch you up for now. We were told, mostly by Democrats, for years and years, Jeffrey Epstein, no big deal. He's fine. He has nothing to do. Forget about his friendship with the Clintons. Forget about his friendship with Prince Andrew. Forget about his friendship with Bill Gates. Forget about, no. There's nothing to see here. Then he gets this conviction on weird child stuff, and he gets off the hook. He gets this really light sentence in Palm Beach jail. And we were told, don't worry about it. Forget about it. No big deal. It's fine. Then he's arrested again, and then he dies in prison. We were told, it's no big deal. He killed himself. Nothing happened. Move along. Then we were told there was no video that night. Then we were told there is video. We're going to release it. Then we were told all sorts of stuff. Okay. Finally, the government under Biden, then government under Trump, government under everybody, releases a report. It says he killed himself. There is no client list. The case is closed. Move along. That was supposed to be the end of the story. CBS News is finding some holes in the story. So for one, there was a claim that no one entered the area that Epstein was being held in during the hours in which he would have killed himself. CBS News has found that the 11 hours of video almost that were released of Epstein's supposed entryway, that those hours of video do not, in fact, show the entrance to his cell block. So the claim that we can know definitively that no one entered the area that he was staying in during those hours in which he would have killed himself, not supported by the evidence. That claim appears to be false. There was another claim made by the government that the video that we saw is raw footage. The CBS analysis saw a cursor on the screen, like the clumsiest way possible to cover your tracks and prove this was not raw footage. If it were raw footage, there wouldn't be a cursor on the screen. This would appear to be some kind of a screen recording. And then if you look into the metadata, you find out from the metadata, this is not raw footage. Okay, that's another inconsistency. Here's another one. We were told this guy, he was just in his cell on suicide watch. He had been given a cellmate so that he wouldn't kill himself. But then for some reason, the cellmate was moved out that day. And so anyway, he was in his cell, though. He was on suicide watch. Couldn't have come and gone. We now find out from the CBS analysis, actually, he was escorted at one point to make an unmonitored cell phone call shortly before he supposedly killed himself. That's new information. We then see in the video, really strange fact, there's this little blip of orange that shows up. Hold on, I thought no one was coming and going. Where is that little blip of orange from? We were told that a corrections officer was briefly caught on camera carrying linen. The CBS analysis shows, no, that actually it doesn't look like someone's carrying a prison uniform. It looks much more like a guy in a prison uniform. That's another inconsistency. Finally, we were told by the government, this is the biggest whopper, that the reason that the tape, and you can see in the footage here, the footage starts, it's 11 p.m., 11:58, 48, 49, 50. It counts all the way up. When it gets to 11:59 and 0 seconds, it skips to midnight. So you have a missing minute in there. Now, some analyses have showed that it's actually more than a minute. But you can tell the missing minute because the frame actually changes on the video. We were initially told by the Attorney General that the reason that it skipped a minute is just because of a reset that happens on all the cameras all night, as if we still live in 1993 or something. Somehow in the last 32 years, we've never had an update to our camera systems. Look, it's a government, it's a prison. Maybe that's possible. No. According to CBS, a high-level government source familiar with the investigation told CBS News that the FBI, the Bureau of Prisons, and the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General are in possession of full, unedited copies of the video, and those copies do not have a missing minute. And to all of this I say, come on. Come on, man. Come on. That's my Joe Biden impression. Come on, man. To all of that I say, we are obviously not getting the full story on Epstein. As I've said from the beginning of this, there were two reactions that we were getting from the latest episode of the Epstein saga. The one was, okay, well, everything the government's telling me is totally true. Case closed. He definitely killed himself. The video is totally legit. No one was there. Nothing to see here. Move along, move along. And the other thing we were told by the people who did not accept that answer was, no, we need full transparency. We need the full grand jury testimony. We need the client list, such as it is. We need all of the transparent information. Anything less is a threat to democracy. And my reaction was, that's not how governments work. My reaction was, there was no surprise here because I never thought we were going to get the whole Epstein story. Because either Epstein is who the government says he is, in which case we have the full story, or Epstein was something else. Epstein is what you probably think he is. Epstein was, as it was reported that Alex Acosta said, mobbed up with intelligence. Epstein was working for either our government or foreign governments, or in any case, if that were true, we were never going to get the whole story. And furthermore, governments are not fully transparent. Governments cannot be fully transparent. Governments should not be fully transparent. That's not what we have governments for. What we're interested in is not full transparency that would, practically speaking, eliminate the government and our representative form of government. What we want to make sure is that there is justice to be done. And so for those of us in that position, for those of us in the come on position, for those of us in looking at this and saying, we're obviously not getting the full story. This thing is riddled with inconsistencies. The story seems to change by the week. Come on. My advice to the government is not that you need to be fully transparent. That's not how governments work. It's not that you need to release random accusations, even from the grand jury, against people who have not been prosecuted. What you have to do is show to the people in some way that justice is being done. That's what the people want. I've said from the beginning, this issue poses a greater threat to the MAGA coalition than any of the other scandals and controversies that have come up over the last 10 years, because Epstein is understood to be a symbol of deep government corruption at the national and international level, transcending political parties. So you just need to show us, you need to come up with a better explanation of why we're not getting the full story. I accept that we're not getting the full story. There are probably perfectly good reasons and even virtuous reasons as to why we're not getting the full story. But you have to explain why to the people we're not getting the full story and why that is just. That's the point. That's what the people are after, is justice. Okay, now, speaking of common sense stuff, major study out. A study that shows something that will affect perhaps all of you someday. We'll get to that in 1 second. First, I want to tell you about Old Glory Bank. You need to go to oldglorybank.com/Knowles. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most big banks in this country are not neutral. In fact, they're actively working against you. They take the money you deposit. They use that money to fund things that you oppose. They use that to fund awful organizations that oppose faith and family and freedom, that support gender ideology, abortion activism, ESG mandates, you name it. You are unwittingly helping them do it. That is one reason that I rushed to open an account at Old Glory Bank. The second I heard, I hadn't heard about it before. And I said, oh, there's a bank that supports what I support. And also, it's super easy to set up an account. FDIC insured, built by people who fear God, love this country, still believe in right and wrong, don't fund evil, don't cancel people for standing up for truth. At a moment when even I was debanked from a payment processor. Fortunately, we found out later on, okay, it was probably not politics. And okay, that's good. Plenty of people have been, though, debanked. And you have no right to know, regardless of the reason you could be debanked. And a lot of the time it could be politics. So set up your account today. It only takes a few minutes to switch. Stop letting your money serve the wrong side. Join me. Join tens of thousands of customers on the right side of banking at oldglorybank.com/Knowles. oldglorybank.com/Knowles. There's a new study. If you're standing up, sit down. If you're driving, pull over. A new study out shows that you can, in fact, die of a broken heart. We've all seen the stories. A couple is married for 50, 60, 70 years, and then one of them dies and the other one dies shortly thereafter. Sometimes that doesn't happen happily. Sometimes, grandma or grandpa make it out of that real danger period and then they live another 10 years. But often it is the case that within months of a longly held spouse dying, the other spouse will die. And now there's a study that shows that happens. Grief trajectories and long-term health effects in bereaved relatives, a prospective population-based cohort study with 10-year follow-up. This is from the Department of Mental Health Research Unit for General Practice, Aarhus, Denmark, Aarhus University, blah, blah, blah. And then you got all the background, the method, the results. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's just a little taste of this scientific survey. The high grief trajectory, HGT, consisted of 176% relatives with persistent high grief symptom levels. We investigated association between grief trajectories and 1, contacts to general practitioner, GP, including out of hours using negative binomial regression analysis. 2, contacts to mental health services, GP talk therapy, private practice psychologist or psychiatrist. 3, use of psychotropic. Sorry, hold on. I'm going to fall asleep if I keep reading this. Let me skip down to the results. Relatives in the HGT had a significantly higher yearly incidence of GP contacts until 7 years after bereavement compared to LGT, HGT, LGBT, HGTV. Okay, go on. Conclusion. This study shows that patients with high and sustained grief symptoms have an increased healthcare use up to 10 years after loss. Let me translate that for you. It means that sometimes people die of a broken heart. Groundbreaking new study. I'm not interested in this for the actual results of the study because I know that people die of a broken heart. We all know that people die of a broken heart. Not only do we know that people can die of a broken heart, every human being for all of history, going back not just to classical antiquity, but back to the cavemen in rural France, the ones who drew on the walls, every person who could plausibly be called human for all of human history knows that people can die of a broken heart. So what is this study? What's interesting to me about this is what it says, not about people dying and broken hearts, but what it says about science. What this is not some new discovery. This is a translation of common sense that we've always known into jargon. And that is so much of what science is. So much. Sometimes there are real scientific discoveries that tell us more in an abstract way about our universe, our physical universe. Sometimes there are discoveries that help in the advancement of technology that can really benefit human life, sometimes damage human life. But a lot of science, maybe the bulk of science, is just a translation of things that we have always known intuitively through our prejudice and through our tradition and through inherited wisdom. A translation of that from clear language into scientific gobbledygook, into jargon. That's all it is. So it's fine. I mean, if this in any way can help treat a broken heart, that's fine. But it won't. It doesn't. Even the healthcare services that it describes and maybe by inference prescribes are just things that we know. Yeah, when someone loses a loved one, you need to talk to them. You need to like spend time with them. Maybe there are certain drugs that they can take that can help in the short term, but you need to cook them dinner and take them out to a baseball game or something. Yeah, we know that. This is it. This is why the modern science worship is so silly, is that so much of modern science is just making the stuff that we've always known forever less comprehensible, making us feel less confident about the things that we've always known intuitively. It's silly. It's very, very silly. It's like the emperor has no clothes. Okay, speaking of people not having clothes on, it has now been determined by the World Athletic Championships that every woman who is to compete must first take a sex test. There must be a scientific test down to the genetic level, actually, to determine that the women are really women in order to compete. The World Athletic Championships has announced, this is the governing body of track and field, that they must pass this gene test in order to compete in the women's sports. And conservatives who are so happy with scraps from the table of liberalism, they're going to celebrate this. They're going to say, yeah, this is a win for women and women's sports and for reality and for the right. This is a win. I don't consider this a win. I consider this a slight, tiny sliver of a win. Okay, guys in principle now can't compete in women's sports. Tiny little sliver of a win. At what cost? At the cost that we have to accept the transgender premise. That it's really hard to tell. That we have to accept the transgender premise. That men can really passably look like... No. To me, this is the farce continuing. And if I were running the World Athletic Championships, I've never been offered that job for some reason, but if I were running the World Athletic Championships, I would not require that every woman who wants to compete take a genetic test. I would require that some of them take a genetic test. You see what I'm saying? The ones who look like chicks and who are obviously chicks, I would say you don't have to take a genetic test. And the ones who look like men and who obviously are men, or at the very least obviously have a clear genetic anomaly, they're the ones who have to take the test. Because it's not hard to tell. Because transgenderism is false, and we can all tell, we all know which one's a man and which one's a woman. And we don't need to go through this farce, this joke of pretending that some 90-pound girl who's, blonde hair, blue-eyed, has childbearing hips, bubbly as can be, all-American princess, might secretly be some hulking dude. We don't need to pretend. It's the same thing at TSA. It's the same thing at TSA. I go through TSA, and my 3-year-old all-American looking kid needs to take a finger swab in case he's a terrorist. Granny, my elderly Italian grandmother or Irish grandmothers, if they go through TSA, they might need to be patted down. They might have to go through secondary screening and take a finger swab because what? They're going to bring a bomb on to advance the jihad? Give me no. It doesn't mean nobody has to go through secondary screening, but the real answer that's politically incorrect is only some people have to. Because you can tell. The guy with the giant beard and the turban and that guy, most guys who look like that are perfectly fine. But all the guys who are going to blow up the plane look at least somewhat like that. And none of the guys who are going to blow up the plane look like my grandmother. So there is no reason beyond a liberal political farce to put my grandmother through secondary screening. There is good reason, even though it's inconvenient and unpleasant for the innocent guys who get caught up in it, there's good reason to put the guys who like Anwar al-Awlaki, we're going to have to put them through the secondary screening. But Michael, there has to be a standard for all of them. Yeah, not really. What's the point of the genetic testing in the athletic competition? To make sure that women are safe and that they have a fair competition and that there still exists women's sports leagues. You don't need to test Sydney Sweeney to do that, okay? We know. Can we be honest? Can we be honest in a way that is fair and polite and not cruel but come on. This is the through line of my show. Come on. Common sense is okay. Common sense is not evil. So much of liberalism is just about marginalizing common sense and making common sense appear unacceptable. It is about prejudicing you against common sense. No bueno. Okay, speaking of places women thrive, there is a great update to the East Wing of the White House, and this is a major story as far as I'm concerned coming out of the Trump administration, and very few people are talking about it. This month, DailyWire Plus is giving you more than ever before. Streaming now, Journey to the UFC, Joe Pyfer. It's not a UFC promo, it's a real American comeback story. Starting Monday, Answer the Call is Jordan Peterson's new series, where he returns to where it all started, answering your questions. No celebrities, no headlines, just real people, real problems, and real answers. Coming August 13th, The Pope and the Fuhrer, The Secret Vatican Files. That's a documentary that I'm hosting. That'll be a lot of fun. Go check that out. Get ready, set your clocks. Put it on your calendar. Plus, this fall, Isabel Brown launches her brand new show on the Daily Wire. Trust us, the libs are going to hate it. Members get it all first, ad-free and unfiltered. Go to dailywire.com and join today. My favorite comment yesterday is from the Freshest Slice, 4105, who says, I see no reason to pay Congress more to continue to do less and less work. Oh, that is where you and I differ, my friend. I see a lot of reason, actually. If I can get Congress to do less of the work that it's currently doing, there's almost no amount of money I would not pay them. That is where you and I differ. But the real reason to pay congressmen more, I know this is an unpopular take, is because in the old days, you didn't have to pay them very much because they were all wealthy landowners. They were aristocrats, and there are benefits to having aristocrats run your legislature. But we decided over the course of American history, we don't want it to be aristocrats. We want it to be AOC. And And to be fair, also regular Joe on the street. And we don't like AOC. We do like regular Joe on the street. But regular Joe on the street doesn't have the resources of a Thomas Jefferson. Okay, regular Joe on the street does not have the resources of a landed gentry 19th century legislator. And so either you can pay him more money or he's going to find ways to make money because it's expensive to be a congressman. And some of those ways are going to be, maybe he's going to outperform all the big hedge funds in the country by insider trading. So everyone's looking for this solution to punish Congress. It's all stick. But the way that you get good behavior is not just with the stick. You also need the carrot. I know it's not popular, but it's correct and it's just. And sorry. I have to give you. You ask me for my judgment. I have to give you my judgment. I'm not here to flatter you. Okay. Now, speaking of judgment. Something wonderful is about to take place at the White House. I'm so excited about this. And you're gonna laugh at me when I tell you what it is. Trump is building a new ballroom. I know, and you're gonna say, Michael, you dandy, you fop. Why are you? There are important issues like trade and immigration and war and peace, and you're talking about a ballroom at the White House. I love it. I love this. Trump has announced that he's going to build a new ballroom. Now, first step. I mentioned this to Elisa last night. She goes, but Mac, you hate renovations. You hate remodeling homes. That's why you won't remodel our home, Mac. And I said, no, I generally do hate renovations and remodeling because they're done poorly. So what happens in America these days is you get some beautiful home from the 1950s or 60s, maybe from the 1920s, or maybe even older, some 19th century home. And then these new money, tasteless monsters move in and they turn it all into some sterile Costco pantry, kitchen island having monstrosity that totally clashes with the beautiful, more classical architecture. And I hate it. I do. I hate that. I was sitting in the wisdom tooth surgery waiting room the other day. I was sitting there with sweet little Lisa and they had HGTV on. And it was one of these remodel shows. And I wanted to vomit. I was becoming sick because they would take some nice, beautiful home and then they'd pour a bunch of money into it and make it hideous. So yes, I generally hate renovation. But here's the difference. Trump has good taste. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about Trump. People think because Trump is a brash billionaire who loves his name in gold, that he's just gaudy and garish and has horrible taste. That is not true. If you've ever visited a Trump property, especially Mar-a-Lago, you go there expecting it to be garish and over the top, and you go and you find out it's actually very tasteful. The man has good taste, which is why he's made a career in luxury architecture, in part. Also, the second reason I'm confident about this, the White House is working with a very, very good architect. The architect is, what is his name? James McCreary, DC-based architect. He actually built the Nashville Cathedral. He's done a great job. The mock-ups they've released for this ballroom, really, really great. Now, the other downside people are going to say is, well, it's too much money. Why are we spending money? We're so far in debt. Why are we spending public money? We're not spending money. Trump is paying for it himself and raising the rest of the private funds that he will not personally contribute. So it's going to cost $200 million. He says it's going to be his gift to the country. This is one of the other advantages of having a rich guy be president. Not going to cost taxpayers a single penny. What is the renovation going to look like? They're not going to rebuild. They're not going to build a new building or anything. They're going to take what is the East Wing and just make it better and make it more usable. So the East Wing of the White House was built in 1902 by Teddy Roosevelt. That was the rudimentary version of it. Then Franklin Roosevelt expanded it in 1942, but he really only expanded it to cover a bomb shelter. And then Rosalind Carter, so Jimmy Carter's wife, made it her office in 1977. First Lady doesn't really need all those offices. And so what they're going to do, what Trump is going to do, and hopefully this happens by the end of his term, is going to turn it into a big ballroom because right now when the White House hosts state functions, it's just too small. And so they have to build a big tent on the South Lawn, and it's unseemly for the global empire to try to ship people out, especially if it's raining or whatever. Now, why does this matter? You say, well, who cares? They can suffer through slightly less opulent parties. No. Why does this matter? It matters because beauty matters. It matters because beauty matters. And the modern world tells us beauty doesn't matter. And the modern world, in fact, goes further and says that ugly things are beautiful and beautiful things are ugly. And that was actually part of the Sydney Sweeney debate all week. Beauty matters. The physical world matters. Modernity, paradoxically, tells us the physical world doesn't matter. Modernity, which is so deeply materialistic, paradoxically tells us the physical world doesn't matter, your body doesn't matter, you can even be the opposite sex. But the physical world does matter. We're incarnate creatures. The other reason it matters is we often see laws pitted against executive orders. Say, look, the executive orders are good, but laws are much more durable than executive orders. It's harder to repeal them, harder to overturn them. That's true. You know what's more durable even than laws a lot of the time? Buildings, architecture. The physical space of your country tells you about the country. A country is not just an idea like the liberals tell us. A country is not even just a people. It's geography. It's building. It's culture. This is it. All the people who tell us of the importance of winning back the culture, this is winning back the culture. In a relatively small way, but a significant way. The White House is a significant building. And making it bigger and more beautiful and grander, show that we can build things again, that's good. One of my favorite executive orders from Trump in the first term was that Make Federal Buildings Beautiful Again Act. It's amazing how bad architecture can bring down the tone of a place, can bring down even our sense of self. You go to D.C., right on the National Mall, there's the African American History Museum. It is a grotesque building. It is one of the greatest injustices ever committed against Black people in America, that is the building for their history. It's horrible. The other buildings, some of the other buildings, are very beautiful. The brutalist buildings are ugly. All this stuff matters. All of this stuff really matters. I was with a Hungarian politician recently. I was with a member of parliament in Hungary, and we're looking around, and they've done a great job of taking all the ugly, brutalist communist architecture and just rebuilding it, just putting on new facades and rebuilding it, making it beautiful and classical and how it once looked. And I talked to that politician. I said, of all the things that you've done in the last 15 years of government, what is the biggest legacy? He goes, the buildings. More than the family policy, more than the economic policy, more than that, because that's going to last. The other laws might go away. That will last. Brilliant stuff from Trump. I absolutely love this. And I trust him to do that much more than the Democrats who would put up some Barack Obama presidential library brutalist monstrosity probably on the White House, but even more than the other Republicans. I trust Trump to do this more than I trust W, all things being equal. Okay, before we get to my favorite time of the week, the mailbag, one last little glimpse into the future. Zohran Mamdani is the Muslim socialist who's running for mayor of New York and likely will be the next mayor of New York. He's called for queer liberation and blah, blah, blah. He's also called to defund the police. After that mass shooting in New York that took the life of a police officer, he was asked if he regrets that call.
LGBTQ, or that they should be defunded or dismantled. So this is a little bit of what Marsha asked, but as you've grown and reflected, and I feel, in fairness to you, you've been good about talking about growing and reflecting and always having conversations. Do you wish you hadn't said some of those things a few years back?
My statements in 2020 were ones made amidst a frustration that many New Yorkers held at the murder of George Floyd and the inability to deliver on what Eric Adams, of all people, described as the right for all of us to be able to enjoy safety and justice, that we need not choose between the two.
So, in other words, no. He doesn't regret calling to defund the police. New York, I love New York. I was born in New York, raised in New York. You are in for a mess of trouble. This is also more evidence, by the way, that Mamdani, some people have said he's a radical Muslim. I don't think he's a radical Muslim. I don't think radical Muslims call for queer liberation. I think he's a typical leftist, a typical millennial, insufferable leftist. That's what he is. And radical Muslims, I don't know if you know this, radical Muslims like the police. They sometimes send the police to your home to make sure you're wearing the right clothing. Okay, they say what you will about the radical Muslims. They're not anti-police. This is worse. This is worse. It'd be a better situation if you were a radical Muslim. This is bad. Bad for New York. Okay. My favorite time of the week, when I get to hear from you in the mailbag. Our mailbag is sponsored by Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles to get your free phone today. Take it away.
Hey, Michael. Big fan of the show. I'm reaching out because I've been thinking about the Sydney Sweeney thing lately. Now, I get that the left hates pretty things and wants everything to be ugly and then wants us all to believe that ugly is pretty and pretty is ugly, yada, yada. However, there have been pretty things that the left has tolerated in the past, pretty people, etc. I think the greater issue is the play on the phrase has good genes. Because for a party and a mindset that believes that everything can be Frankensteined into being exactly the same and genetics don't really matter, the reinforcement of the claim that some things are just genetically different, genetically beautiful, genetically have a good figure, look feminine, that would be a tough pill to swallow. They wouldn't like that. Anyways, thoughts?
I think that's a good point. There is, I don't know that that's the chief issue. I think the chief issue is that the left prefers the grotesque Jaguar commercials to the pretty American Eagle commercials, and the left prefers non-white people to white people and is pretty explicit about that. And the left prefers outspoken left-wing activists to bubbly Hollywood starlets who keep their mouths shut about politics like Sydney Sweeney. So I think that's still the chief issue. But I think you make a very, very good point that underlying that in an almost unconscious way is the fact that liberalism necessarily denies natural difference. Liberalism has to deny natural difference. Conservatism recognizes that there are natural differences. Conservatism recognizes, therefore, that there is hierarchy. And there are all manner of hierarchies in the world. There are hierarchies within the home. There are hierarchies within a business. There are hierarchies within a government and within civil society. And not everyone gets to be everything. And part of life is, look, we have certain ambitions and we strive to be the very best version of ourselves possible. But not everyone gets to be an astronaut. Not everyone gets to be president. And we need to, on the one hand, aspire to be the best version of ourselves possible, but also be content with our place in life. Not everyone's going to have the same place in life. We have wonderful diversity in life. And liberalism hates that. Liberalism says, no, we're all tabula rasa when we're born. We're all exactly the same. We can all be, anyone can be an astronaut. Anyone can be the president. Anyone can do anything. Anyone can be any sex they want, for goodness sakes. There's no natural, the shortest guy in the world can be a basketball player and the skinniest guy in the world can be a linebacker. And it's just not true. So I agree. That's one of the errors about human nature that's in liberalism. And I agree. That is something that's in the Sydney Sweeney commercial. Because the Sydney Sweeney commercial says, some people are just born prettier than others. And that's just true. Next one.
Hey, Michael. My name's Kate. I have 2 questions for you today. My first one's about SLA and her routine. So I assume that you have to get to DW pretty early to do your show, but SLA is up before that in order to make breakfast. I don't currently make breakfast for my husband, and I thought that having a new baby was a great excuse for why I don't do that. However, SLA has a new baby, and she still does it all. She seems pretty incredible, but I'm just curious about what time she wakes up and when she goes to sleep at night. Do you guys sleep at the same time? I'm just so curious. My second question is, how can you live with yourself? It was only a few weeks ago that you told us wearing braces and suspenders is fine as long as they remain under your jacket. And then you released your trailer for your new series, which sounds great. However, visible suspenders, what's with that? Yeah. You said that's a no-go. Yeah. I can't believe this. Explain yourself.
Yeah. Okay, fair. I'll take them in order. To SLA, yeah, some people are the total package. What can I say, Some people, hotter than a $2 pistol. Some people wake up early, I had a delicious egg salad today because my gum still hurts. So she made me egg salad and made different breakfast for the boys, pancakes and fruit and everything. And then, wonderful dinners and races. Some people that's a total package, My wife's even a doctor, as we sometimes talk about around the DailyWire. And so, yeah, that's true. She gets up earlier than me. She probably gets up an hour earlier than me. At least half an hour, probably an hour earlier than me. Though she does go to bed significantly earlier than I do. So we do, we recognize different roles in a household. And they're intersecting roles, and they're sometimes overlapping roles, but they're distinct. So sweet little Lisa wakes up a little earlier, does it all. She does it all. Dr. Donna Reed, and then I stay up later because I have to do work. I have to write the show. I have to own the libs. I have to send the tweets, very arduous work. And then occasionally we see each other every so often. As to the braces thing, you're right. I knew this was going to come up for the really perceptive people. I have this new show, The Pope and the Fuhrer, coming out. And in it, my wardrobe is that I'm wearing trousers, with braces and a shirt. And when you're in public, you should never have your braces exposed. You might say, Michael, a show is pretty public, isn't it? Yes, but I suppose the conceit of the narration of the show is that I am in my office. And in my home office, I would wear braces exposed. So that's part of the conceit, okay? That is a kind of exception based on the artifice of show business. That is not real life. I don't want to see your braces when you're at a wedding. They want me to move on to the member segmentum. I want at least one more voicemail bag. I want at least one more. Give it to me.
Hey, Michael. I used to be an atheist, and I started going to church because of you, so thank you for that. But the issue at hand here is that I've started dating a girl who's really fantastic. She's got the kindest heart. She would do anything for you. But she's Indian, and I'm white. And, like, I've always pictured my wife being... the same race as me, like looking like me, and my kids looking like me. And so I'm in a dilemma here where I keep trying to get past it, but I keep getting caught up on that issue. And my friends like her, they've judged me heavily for even being caught up on this. And I know they'd be upset if I broke things off. So I'm just trying to get your 2 cents and see if it's reasonable for me to be feeling this way or not. Thank you.
But now I'm really glad I took one more question. That's definitely going to get me in trouble for my answer. No, it's fine to feel that way. It's fine. It's totally fine to feel that way. Nobody would blame a Japanese guy if he said, I want to marry a Japanese girl. I don't want to marry Guatemalan girl. Nobody would blame that guy. It's okay. Or if you say, look, I'm more attracted to people who look a certain way than look a different way, or even to say, oh, look, I want my kids to look a certain way. I don't know. That's true. You don't want to make an idol out of these things. So if you came in the opposite direction and said, all my friends and family want me to marry a white girl, but I really like this Indian girl. Do I have to break up with her? I'd say, no, marry the Indian girl if you want to marry the Indian girl. But you don't need to feel shame for having physical preferences in a wife. You don't need to feel shame, or even cultural preferences. I don't know if she's Indian from India or what that means, but it's okay. That's fine. There's nothing hateful about it. It's not like you're saying I hate Indian people. It's just saying I would prefer for my family to look a certain way. You're not so long as you're not making an idol out of race, and it's just you're just saying, look, I'm more physically attracted to this kind of person, or I just have this this idea of what my family's going to look like. It's okay. It's all right. I know liberalism insists otherwise, but a good rule of thumb, I guess, is if none of those people who are castigating you for even having this concern would hold any other race to that standard, then you don't need to hold yourself as a member of a different race to that standard. If you want to marry the girl, I think that's perfectly fine. If you like your girlfriend and you say, this wasn't exactly what I pictured, but I love this girl and we're going to get married. I think that's fine. You could have a great life that way. But if you say, I really like her, but I don't want to marry an Indian girl. Okay. It's okay. You're entitled to do that. It's okay. There is no law saying you have to marry someone of a different race. It's okay. Don't calm down. Just recollect yourself. Think about the girl. Think about your family. Think about the relationship itself. But if you're going to break up with her. Don't lead the girl on. Okay. How's that for an answer? That's going to get everybody in trouble. Today's Fake Headline Friday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLAS at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.